Yeah.
So they were arguing loudly in her trailer during the shoot of It Ends With Us.
Yeah, they were arguing.
Yeah, we've lost some talk.
Hi and welcome to Flossom Talk. I'm Tashti Flo, journalist, Hollywood truth teller, and your voice of reason in a town built on delusion. So this weekend, I published an interview with photographer Rick Feddick, and it got a lot of attention. It got so many comments, and people were blown away by his story. He talked about what happened to him after this accident that he had with Ryan Reynolds, how Ryan and Blake collaborated in an effort to basically take him down. You should go and watch that if you missed it. Anyway, when Rick and I had finished that conversation, he started telling me about other things that he had witnessed happening on set with Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. So I had to press record again. And in this episode, I am going to play for you what he said about their relationship and what really went on behind the scenes of It Ends With Us and on her movie Age of Adaline. Also, I wanted to quickly make some comments about Sydney Sweeney again. Yesterday, I spoke about this horrific interview in GQ and how the reporter made a complete fool of herself. Today, the news broke that Sydney Sweeney's movie, Christie, flopped so bad it's one of the worst ever box office disaster in history. Is it because of that American Eagle ad? Is it because people don't want to go to the movie theaters? Or is it because people really don't like Sydney Sweeney? Okay, so let's just jump into this conversation that I had with Rick Feddick. So Rick, you've been told stories from Blake was on set in Vancouver shooting Age of Adaline. What happened?
Right.
What did you hear about that?
Well, not only did I hear, but I saw, every day Ryan was showing up, wanting to be in the daily tents, looking, watching scenes being shot, babysitting, them shooting the scenes. And, once Blake was finished, he would leave and she would leave with her security guard or whatever, her driver, but many times people were complaining about him interfering on set in Age of Adaline. And even Blake herself went through 3 assistants while she was here. People had trouble working with her.
3 assistants for one movie?
Yes.
And Ryan wanted to see the dailies every day. Did they let him?
Oh, yeah. I don't know if they let him, but he was in the tent every day watching.
Do you think it's jealousy from his part?
I know 100%. Once again, back in the day, I was asked to work on him and Scarlett. He brought Scarlett here to meet his mom and all that kind of stuff. But, everything about him and Blake, when they work on sets, they become attached to, somebody that they're working with, or now, he knows that the way they met, he probably cheated on Scarlett. I would bet money on it, my opinion. So, people, when people know the characteristics, of course they're going to be jealous. The same goes with Justin Baldoni. Everything that I see, with what went on, and I've talked to a couple of the New York photographers since. He was always around, dibbling and causing problems. One of them was telling me that there was
with us.
Yeah, there was a big yelling match going on in her trailer at one time. That they suspended shooting. So
between Blake and Ryan.
Yeah.
So they were arguing loudly in her trailer during the shoot of It Ends With Us.
Yeah, they were arguing. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. I never heard this before. So did they hear anything?
There is pictures, and I believe there's a video. I don't know if you can find it. I'll look for it. When he left, he slammed the door behind him. He was unhappy leaving. So it's there is some there's some back scenes, that are out there. I don't know, if you have access to any of the celebrity photo agencies websites. But it might be out there still.
Or maybe not. I'm sure that they scrubbed it as much as they could, but that's so interesting to me
You know
that,
what? If you were to go to those agencies, they've probably re-released them since all this stuff went down. That's what agencies do. They re-release, videos or pictures that are relevant to what's going on.
wow, that's so interesting. So you believe that this whole thing could have been like a jealousy drama from Ryan is jealous of,
From
of
what I
Justin.
from what I've seen, I would bet money on it. I would bet money on it.
Yes, it makes so much sense to me. I have been trying to figure out what is driving Ryan Reynolds. Why does he have so much anger towards Justin Baldoni? A lot of content creators, including Candace Owens, I think she made like a whole 1.5 hour special about Ryan Reynolds' jealousy a while back, and a lot of people have been talking about this, but I've never heard anyone actually talk about it, someone who's actually seen it firsthand. The fact that Ryan Reynolds wanted to see the dailies from Age of Adaline, and that he was roaming around on set like that and annoying people. Blake's co-star in Age of Adaline was Game of Thrones actor Michiel Huisman. And according to sources, according to articles written back then, it was quite obvious that Ryan was really jealous. There's a story here where Ryan is joking, which is something he always does about things that he's serious about. And it says here that the Age of Adaline, Ryan Reynolds jokes of jealousy over Blake Lively and Michiel Huisman. Perfect peer tweet. So Lionsgate tweeted back then saying Blake Lively and Michiel Huisman, and then atting them in the post saying are the perfect pair. True love never looked so good. Ryan did not like that. Ryan responded to this saying, ugh, ... I can hear you at Age of Adaline. Is there any other reason why he would want to see the dailies every single day from a movie he was absolutely not involved in? Same thing he did with It Ends With Us. And now I'm thinking it wasn't Blake who wanted to see the dailies, it was Ryan. And here's an interesting part, because Michiel Huisman was in Game of Thrones and Ryan Reynolds was such a huge fan of the show. And here E! Online is quoting Blake Lively saying that Ryan Reynolds obsessed with Game of Thrones. It caused tough time in our marriage, jokes Blake Lively. And then it says a question here, does the Age of Adaline star watch Game of Thrones with her hubby? And I did watch some interviews from Age of Adaline when she was paired with her co-star, and Blake said she had never watched Game of Thrones. So obviously she didn't watch it with Ryan. That made me think of that text that Blake sent to Justin Baldoni, the text message that went everywhere. I am Khaleesi, and like her, I happen to have a few dragons. Now it makes so much sense to me who wrote that message to Justin Baldoni. And now, as we know, that text message backfired big time on Blake. It was everywhere in the headlines and everyone was like, oh my God, that's awful. And of course, as you know, Taylor Swift did not like that text. And that was the beginning of the fallout of their friendship. And as we know, a lot of the texts and emails that was sent to Justin Baldoni had Ryan Reynolds written all over it. And this explains a lot to me of what really went on there. And also the fact that they were fighting so much in that trailer that these photographers witnessed or heard that they were yelling at each other inside the trailer, and that Ryan left furious and slammed the door behind him. I don't know what day that was on set, but I would love to find out if that was one of the days where Blake had an intimate scene with Justin Baldoni. Yes, I would have loved to be a fly on the wall during that fight. I guess we won't find out what they were fighting about, but the fact that they were fighting on that set, to me, is more evidence of what really went on here. Ryan Reynolds was so jealous of Justin Baldoni, and that is the only reason I could find why he was so furious with him and why he still is so furious with him. Because otherwise, there's no logic here. One thing is that they wanted to take over the movie and all that stuff, but that doesn't explain the fury that Ryan Reynolds feels over Justin Baldoni. And Blake had no choice but to support her husband if she wanted to save the marriage. I'm not saying that Blake had nothing to do with all of this stuff. Obviously, she did. But I think these incidents just explain so well what really drove both of them. Anyways, let's get over to Sydney Sweeney here. Her latest movie has bombed at the box office, and it said in Daily Mail they're asking, has Sydney Sweeney become too toxic for Hollywood? Star suffers box office flop with new film Christie after that controversial ad. Zendaya feud and backlash over her political views. In my episode yesterday, I went through that interview that is now everywhere, a viral interview where she was interviewed in GQ, and the reporter really made a fool of herself, trying to trap her into saying something that she didn't want to say, and she was going after her political views. And I have my opinions about that as a reporter. I think you should always be objective. Don't put your views upon anyone else because that makes you biased. Anyways, her movie Christie got Oscar buzz, or she got Oscar buzz, back when the movie was showing in all the festivals. And she sacrificed a lot for this role. She gained 30 pounds for it, of muscle. And she admitted it was a really physical, challenging part for her to do all this fighting. And she said it was a lot of real fighting going on in this movie. And interestingly enough, this seemed to be a pattern of Sydney Sweeney that her movies flop in theaters. This is the fifth one in a row that flops. This movie goes down in history, I think, as number 13 of the worst ever openings of a movie that's been widely released in theaters. And I wonder why. I don't think necessarily that the American Eagle jeans ad is the reason for that. I think more the reason is that Sydney Sweeney has branded herself in the wrong way. I think she is an example of a person that's just really overexposed and that people get this fatigue from it. And for this movie, she's playing a lesbian fighter, a boxer. And I don't know if there's specifically a wide audience for a movie like that. And you have to remember, Sydney Sweeney is not like a big movie star. She got recognition after White Lotus, but then she's become more famous for her outfits and her assets than for her acting. And if you followed the headlines last week, she showed up in a dress that was completely see-through at this Power Women's event arranged by Variety, and she took away the attention from all the other women there by showing off her assets too much, so much that I actually had her in that dress in a thumbnail on YouTube, and they removed it because it was inappropriate. But I find it fascinating that a movie that I think it got 70% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it got good reviews, and Sydney got Oscar buzz already for the part herself. I find it very interesting that it flopped so badly. But I do have to say that I do think her political views will affect her chances of winning an Oscar. Because the voters at the Oscar, as you know, are Hollywood people, and most of them are liberals. And also, I do think the backlash she received from that ad could definitely influence the voters from the Academy. And of course, it doesn't really help to date someone like Scooter Braun. And on top of that she has a feud with Zendaya, who is such a beloved actress. Rumor has it that Zendaya, who is her co-star in Euphoria, the TV show, does not like Sydney's political views, and that the pair had refused to pose next to each other on the red carpet, and that she doesn't want to do interviews with her. I don't know if there's any truth to that. So if she wants to have a long career in Hollywood, I think she needs to rethink some of her choices. Her next big movie is The Housemaids, where she is co-starring with Brendan Sklenar. And guess who is the director of that movie? That's Blake's bestie, Paul Feig. I do not believe that movie is going to be a big hit. I watched the trailer. I'm like, After I saw Paul Feig's latest movie, Another Simple Favor, it was horrific. It was a horrible, horrible movie. So, and now I feel like Brendan Sklenar. Do people want to go and watch him in movies? I don't know. Sydney came out on Instagram and said that she was really proud of the movie. And I really feel empathy for her. She put so much work into doing a part. And, there were Oscar buzz around it. She had her hopes up. And then no one wants to go and see the film. And of course, that's really heartbreaking. So my wish for Sydney is that she focuses more on her talent and on her acting career than being in all the headlines, and probably not do any more American Eagle ads, unless her goal in life is to sell a lot of jeans, because I do think that campaign sold a lot of jeans, but that doesn't really help her acting career. Anyways, that's it for me, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and thanks for watching. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode of Flawsome Talk, and I'll see you soon. Bye.
Yeah, we Flawsome Talk.